There is a kind of silence that doesn't ask to be filled. It lingers in the room after the last word has been spoken. It settles gently on your skin like sunlight filtered through curtains. And if you're still enough, it asks you something. Are you happy? No, not the kind of happiness you show in photos or explain to others. I mean the quiet kind. The one that wraps itself around your chest. When you're lying in bed at night and there's nothing left to scroll, nothing left to prove. Are you happy there? You see, this episode isn't going to give you 5 easy steps to eternal joy. It's not about productivity. Hacks or gratitude journals, though. We'll visit those along the way. This is a slower conversation, a walk, not a race. Because happiness, real, lasting happiness, might be something different than we've been told. Maybe it's not a goal. Maybe it's not a constant smile or a permanent state. Maybe it's something quieter, something welder, something that only shows up when you stop looking for it. This is the art of being happy, and it begins with a question. When was the last time you felt it? Not the rush of dopamine after buying something new. Not the moment you hit a goal or got praised or posted something and watched the likes roll in, but the kind of happiness that didn't need an audience. Can you remember? Or have we been taught to forget what real happiness feels like? Maybe we have been taught to forget because happiness, in the way we've come to understand it, feels more like a performance than a feeling. We chase it the way children chase bubbles, with excitement, with hope, only to watch it burst the moment we think we have it. And maybe that's the first truth no one told us. Happiness is unstable, right, by design. Psychologists like Daniel Kahneman have studied this for decades. He speaks of 2 selves that live within us. The experiencing self, the one that lives the moment, and the remembering self, the one that writes the story of that moment after it's over. What's strange is this, they don't always agree. You could be on vacation, standing in front of the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen. But if your feet hurt or your phone battery is dying, the experiencing self might not be happy at all. Yet later you post a photo. You're right, it was the perfect trip. And your remembering self edits the truth. It smooths the rough edges. It rewrites discomfort as charm. That's what memory does. It doesn't just record happiness, it manufactures it. And so the problem begins. We stop trusting our present moment feelings. We start curating stories instead of listening to them. But what if happiness isn't something we remember, or even something we plan for? What if it's something we stumble into when we're not performing? The philosopher Aristotle had a word for this deeper kind of happiness, eudaimonia. It wasn't pleasure. It wasn't ease. It was the fulfillment that comes from living in alignment with your values, even when it's difficult. Modern life, though, doesn't leave much room for that. We measure happiness by the number of achievements unlocked, vacations posted or smiles captured, and slowly, we become suspicious of quiet joy, the kind that doesn't flash, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that doesn't prove anything. But here's the thing. Even when you stop performing, even when you sit in stillness, your brain doesn't. It's a restless storyteller, a prediction machine, a chemical factory that tries to keep you alive, not necessarily happy. And that's important to understand. Because biologically, happiness is not your brain's priority. Survival is. So when you feel anxious, uncertain, or dissatisfied, that's not a glitch. That's the system working as intended. Let's talk about chemicals. You've heard their names: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. We call them the happy chemicals. But in reality, they're not here to make you blissful. They're here to motivate you. Dopamine gets you to chase something. It's the buzz before the bite, the thrill of anticipation. You feel it when you check your phone and see a notification. Not because something beautiful happened, but because something might have. Serotonin is status, pride. It flows when you feel respected or admired, which is why social media, with its likes, hearts, and follows, can feel like serotonin on tap. Oxytocin, that's connection. A hug, a gaze, the soft grip of a hand that says, "You're safe here." And endorphins? They're nature's morphine, released in pain to keep you going. None of these chemicals are bad, but none of them were designed to create lasting peace. They spike, they fade, and then they ask for more. That's why chasing happiness through chemicals alone, through thrills, clicks, highs, leaves us more empty than before. And here's the quiet tragedy. We've learned to confuse those chemical spikes with actual joy. But real joy isn't loud. It doesn't demand more. In fact, it often comes in the absence of wanting. It shows up in stillness, in the middle of nothing in particular. When you're washing dishes and a memory makes you smile, when you're walking home and the sky is bruised with colors you didn't expect, those are not dopamine hits. They're something older, something the brain can't measure, but the soul recognizes. The ancients knew something we forgot. Thousands of years before the term mental health even existed, there were people sitting quietly on stone steps, watching life pass, not to escape it, but to understand it. They were called Stoics. And contrary to the modern misunderstanding, Stoicism wasn't about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing hurts. It was about choosing what to give your energy to. It was about clarity and control, not of the world, but of yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote in his journal, "Never meant for anyone else to read. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That line is a quiet revolution, because it means your peace doesn't depend on what they say, or what they did, or whether the world applauds you or forgets you completely. Your peace is yours to keep or to surrender. Epictetus, born a slave, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in those words lies the foundation of Stoic joy. Radical ownership of your perspective. You can't control the traffic, or the weather, or how someone else shows up in your life, but you can control your interpretation. You can choose to pause, to respond instead of react. That's not just ancient wisdom. It's neuroscience. Every time you pause instead of snapping, breathe instead of spiraling, your brain rewires itself. The Stoics weren't cold. They were calm. They didn't escape emotion. They just didn't become prisoners to it. They practiced the art of less. Less attachment, less expectation, less noise. And through that, they found something most of us are still chasing. Freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever they wanted, but the freedom to stay centered no matter what happened. Isn't that a kind of happiness too? Not the giddy laughing on a beach kind, but the deeper, sturdier kind, the one that doesn't shake when the world does. That's the kind of peace you don't find in a shopping cart or a highlight reel. You find it in discipline, in simplicity, in choosing not to chase every high, but to build a solid ground beneath you. While others tried to define happiness, Schopenhauer began with a darker question. Why does it feel so rare? To him, life was not built for our joy. It was built for our struggle. Existence, he said, was marked by suffering. Not occasionally, but inherently, a bleak view? Maybe. But listen closely, and you'll hear something surprisingly liberating. Because while most of the world teaches us to chase happiness, Schopenhauer urged us to stop chasing altogether. He believed that the root of suffering is desire. That wanting, yearning, craving for love, success, beauty, approval, creates a cycle that never truly ends. We get what we want. It feels good. Then we want something else. And so, happiness becomes a flicker. Between two states of lack, we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. He once said, "We spend so much time climbing towards some perfect state of being, wealth, status, attention, only to discover that the summit was an illusion." So what's the alternative? To desire less. Not because ambition is wrong, but because peace is fragile. And most of our ambitions don't protect it. They tear it apart. Schopenhauer's version of happiness isn't flashy. It's not something you show off. It's something you guard, quietly. He wrote a small book called The Wisdom of Life, a guide not to pleasure, but to tranquility. He spoke of the importance of solitude, of simplicity, of reducing unnecessary needs until what remains is manageable and meaningful. He believed we are most free, not when we have everything, but when we need nothing. In a way, he was echoing the Stoics, but from a place of brutal honesty rather than stoic calm. Happiness, in his eyes, was not the presence of joy, but the absence of pain. And once you see the world that way, the goal is no longer to feel amazing all the time, but to feel at peace with enough. We live in the age of everything. Every answer is one search away. Every face, one swipe. Every craving, one click. And yet, beneath all this abundance, an emptiness lingers. We are the most connected generation in human history, and somehow one of the loneliest. Why? Because we're not chasing happiness. We're chasing distraction. We scroll not to feel joy, but to escape boredom. We post not to express ourselves, but to be seen. We buy not because we need, but because we've been told we're incomplete without it. We live in what Barry Schwartz calls the paradox of choice. Too many options, too many decisions, and as a result, too much regret. He says, the secret to happiness is low expectations. But that's not what we're taught. We're told to want more, to expect more, to never settle. And so we set the bar so high, even joy can't reach it. Then there's social media, a place where everyone's best moments live forever, and no one's real life ever shows. You see smiling faces, perfect couples, dream vacations, filtered bodies, curated meals. But what you don't see is the anxiety behind the smile, the silence after the photo, the arguments never posted, the loneliness edited out, and you start to compare your real life versus their highlight reel. Of course you don't feel happy, you feel behind, less than, not enough. But you are comparing your messy, beautiful, breathing life to someone else's digital illusion. No wonder happiness feels so far away. The problem isn't that we want too much. It's that we want from the wrong places. We've outsourced our sense of worth to algorithms, to approval, to applause. And in doing so, we've forgotten that real joy doesn't come from what you show the world, but from how you see your world. The more we chase artificial highs, the more we lose sight of the real thing. And the real thing? It's quieter, harder to package, but far more lasting. Close your eyes just for a second. Feel the air in the room, the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, arriving and leaving, like waves that never needed your permission. That's all real. And yet, most of us live our entire lives somewhere else. Our minds time travel constantly, regretting what was, worrying what will be, obsessing over what might happen or what should have. But happiness, if it lives anywhere at all, lives here. Now, this isn't just spiritual fluff, it's science. Studies show that people are happier when they're present, regardless of what they're doing: washing dishes, walking to work, sitting in traffic. If they're present, they report more satisfaction than those who are mentally elsewhere, even during more exciting moments. Why? Because attention is love, and what you give your attention to, you bring to life. John Kabat-Zinn, the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, says, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." Mindfulness isn't about sitting still in a perfect posture with incense in the air. It's about showing up for your life as it is. Messy, beautiful, boring, miraculous. It's pausing before reacting, breathing before speaking, tasting your food instead of devouring it in a scroll. And over time, something quiet but profound begins to shift. You stop searching for joy in peak moments and begin noticing it in ordinary ones. A warm cup of tea, the weight of sunlight on your face, the laughter of someone you love, unfiltered, unplanned. Eckhart Tolle writes, "Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have, and yet we trade it constantly. For worries that may never come, for stories we didn't write, for futures we can't predict. but you are here, now, and that is enough. Not every moment needs to be extraordinary. In fact, most of them won't be. But that's not a flaw in life. That's its rhythm. And learning to love that rhythm is a kind of genius. In Japan, they have a word, ikigai. It loosely translates to reason for being. But it's not some grand life mission. Your ikigai might be your morning walk, feeding the birds, fixing things with your hands, brewing the perfect cup of coffee. It's the thing that grounds you, that brings you back to yourself, that asks nothing but your presence and gives everything in return. Meanwhile, in Denmark, there's hygge, a word with no direct translation. It means coziness, but also safety, simplicity, but also sacredness. It's the candle you light after a long day, the blanket that smells like someone you love, the dinner where no one checks their phone. It's slowness, warmth, togetherness. These concepts aren't about escaping reality. They're about fully inhabiting it. You don't need a new country, a new job, or a new version of yourself. You need a moment. One small, real, tender moment, noticed. Because joy lives in the ordinary, but only if you're paying attention. You could scroll through 10,000 beautiful lives, or you could look up and notice the way the wind touches the trees, the way your pet follows you room to room, the way your body softens when someone remembers your favorite song. None of it is loud, but all of it is true. The art of small joys is really the art of returning to what was always enough. And slowly, quietly, you realize you don't have to chase happiness. You just have to stop missing it. You would never speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself. You wouldn't call them a failure for making a mistake. You wouldn't shame them for feeling tired or lost or not enough. You wouldn't say, "You should be doing more. You should be better by now." But somehow, we say those things to ourselves every day. There's a voice inside you, maybe you know it well. It's sharp, efficient. It points out every flaw before anyone else can. At first, it might seem helpful. It sounds like ambition. It sounds like discipline, but it isn't. Because real discipline doesn't shame you. It guides you. And real growth doesn't come from war. It comes from care. Psychologist Kristen Neff calls it self-compassion, the radical act of being on your own side. Not because you've earned it, not because you're perfect, but because you are human. And being human is incredibly hard. Studies show that people who practice self-compassion are not only happier, they're more resilient, more motivated, and more connected to others. Because when you stop attacking yourself, you stop needing to attack the world. When you stop judging every flaw, you start noticing your quiet strengths. Self-compassion is not letting yourself off the hook. It's holding yourself accountable without cruelty. It's saying, "I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. I'm struggling, but I'm not alone. I didn't get it right this time, but I'm still worthy of love." Imagine living your life with that kind of gentleness. Imagine coming home to yourself. That is not weakness. It is the foundation of peace. Because how can you feel safe in the world if you don't feel safe in your own mind? Maybe happiness doesn't begin with joy. Maybe it begins with mercy. So, what is happiness? After all this, the science, the philosophy, the chemicals, the candles, the quiet. Maybe the question isn't what is happiness? Maybe the question is, when do you feel most alive? Not the loudest moment. Not the most impressive one. The most true one. Happiness is not a fixed destination. It's not the house, the job, the partner, the bank account. It's a practice, a rhythm, a series of small, repeated choices to return, again and again, to what matters. It's sitting with your coffee in the morning and noticing that it tastes good. It's forgiving yourself faster than you used to. It's holding space for someone else without needing to fix them. It's walking down the same street and realizing the sky looks different today. It's enough. It's being enough. And yes, there will be grief. There will be days when you forget everything you've learned. There will be storms, and doubt, and silence that feels more hollow than holy. But those moments don't mean happiness is gone. They mean you're alive. And happiness was never supposed to replace pain, only to sit beside it quietly. Maybe that's the greatest art of all, not to avoid suffering, but to carry joy with us through it. So, no, happiness isn't constant. It isn't perfect. It doesn't promise forever, but it is possible. Not when you chase it, but when you listen for it. And now that you've listened this far, maybe you've already begun. We began in silence, and now we return to it. But something's changed, hasn't it? The silence at the beginning was a question, a kind of emptiness waiting to be filled. But this is different. This silence feels full, like something sacred is settling inside you, gently, without asking permission. And maybe, just maybe, that's happiness too. Not the kind that jumps or dances or demands to be seen. The kind that rests, that stays. There's a quote by the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. He said, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves." So maybe we don't need to have all the answers. Maybe we just need better questions. Softer ones, kinder ones. Not am I doing enough, but am I noticing enough? Not when will I be happy, but what's already here, quietly waiting for me to see it. So take a breath, not to fix anything, just to feel yourself breathing. You're still here, and that's something. In a world that constantly pulls your attention outward, you chose to come inward, to listen, to wonder, to remember. That too is an act of happiness. And so we end, not with a bang, not with a lesson, but with a pause, a return to stillness, to yourself.